Just hours ago, a revelation tore through the Tyler Robinson case like a thunderclap, and it changes everything. For over a week, the public had been fed a single, polished version of events. Tyler Robinson was a shooter. Period. Headlines didn't ask questions. They delivered verdicts. News anchors spoke with certainty. Commentators treated his guilt as fact. It was the kind of swift, clean narrative the public craves after chaos. A villain named, a case wrapped, justice served. Or so it seemed. But now, new information is surfacing that rips at the seams of that tidy story. Documents, testimonies, and fragments of evidence are beginning to emerge, not from official channels, but from independent investigators, citizen journalists, and people who were there that day. Across social media and YouTube, researchers are piecing together timelines, comparing footage, analyzing statements. And what they're finding doesn't match what was sold to the public. Evidence once presented as clear-cut is now being disputed. Ballistics don't line up with the alleged weapon. Phone records point away from the crime scene. Even the supposed eyewitness accounts contradict one another when you look closely. Some say the shot came from above. Others insist it came from ground level. Some describe a shadow slipping away across a rooftop. Each contradiction chips away at the certainty that was presented as fact. Timelines, too, have started to unravel. The official sequence of events, who was where when the shot was fired, how Robinson was identified, is no longer holding under scrutiny. The gaps are widening. The inconsistencies are multiplying. And with every new detail, the possibility grows more chilling that Tyler Robinson may have been in the wrong place at the wrong time, caught in a storm of chaos, while the real shooter walked away unseen. It's a scenario no one wants to believe. Not the media, not the public, not the authorities who rushed to call the case closed. But as the cracks spread, the narrative shifts from certainty to suspicion. And suspicion leads to one unavoidable question. If Tyler Robinson isn't the shooter, then who is? Before that night, Tyler Robinson wasn't a name anyone recognized outside his own circle. He wasn't infamous. He wasn't a threat. And he certainly wasn't the type of person people would picture in the crosshairs of a national manhunt. No violent past, no criminal record, no history of radical behavior, or even minor run-ins with the law. Friends describe him as quiet, steady, even-tempered. Neighbors remembered him as polite. Someone who waved from his porch, not someone plotting an assassination. By every measurable standard, Tyler Robinson was invisible to the system. That's why his arrest landed like a lightning strike. His community didn't just question it. They were stunned. Shock turned into disbelief as images of him in handcuffs spread online and across TV screens. The boy next door was suddenly the alleged gunman in one of the most publicized shootings of the year. People who knew him personally were left scrambling for explanations, while those who didn't simply accepted what they were told. Prosecutors had their man, and prosecutors moved fast, almost too fast. Within days, they had assembled what looked like a bulletproof case, motive, opportunity, and the alleged weapon. Press conferences framed the arrest as the product of airtight investigation. The supposed motive was hinted at but never fully explained. Still, it was enough to imply intent. Opportunity was painted as fact, and the rifle displayed at a podium stood as the centerpiece of their case. It was a narrative that looked clean and compelling from the outside, the kind that satisfies a shaken public desperate for answers. The media amplified it without pause. Night after night, the same sound bites played on repeat. Headlines declared guilt before a trial even began. Broadcasters used phrases like the shooter instead of the accused. The repetition transformed accusation into perceived fact. For most viewers, the case was already solved. But then, as always, the cracks began to show. Independent analysts started combing through the evidence. Journalists began asking harder questions. Details that didn't fit the official story started surfacing. And slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, doubt began to creep in, not just among investigators, but in the mind of the very public who had once accepted the narrative as gospel. YouTube analysts began doing what the official investigation never seemed to do, slowing the surveillance footage down frame by frame, combing through every second with forensic precision. They froze the grainiest shots, sharpened them, zoomed in on the figure the authorities claimed was Tyler Robinson. And then they asked a question the public hadn't dared to yet. Did the man in that video even look like him? Side-by-side comparisons started circulating online. The shape of the jawline didn't match. The height looked off compared to surrounding objects. The walk, the way the man carried himself, even the tilt of his head, all of it was scrutinized. Some frames seemed to show someone with a heavier build, others a different hairline entirely. And as those comparisons spread, the public started to question whether they were seeing the shooter at all or a completely different person. At the same time, witness accounts began to clash like never before. In the first chaotic hours, some swore they saw Tyler Robinson at the scene, identify him with confidence. But under deeper questioning, others described someone entirely different. A man in different clothes, a different complexion, a different build. Some said the shooter was on the ground. Others insisted he was above them. In court, these contradictions would normally tear a case apart. But in the court of public opinion, they were quietly ignored. The more the internet examined the details, the more the case began to unravel. Thread by thread, YouTubers, Twitter investigators, and amateur sleuths began pulling apart what once looked airtight. They overlaid maps, reconstructed timelines, measured distances, and compared the state's narrative with their own findings. With each new discrepancy revealed, the official version of events began to look less like a clear-cut investigation and more like a hasty script.
It seems like the public is, at this point, being purposely misled or being treated like we have the intelligence of a 5-year-old. It is truly mind-boggling. It is mind-boggling for me, 1, for Charlie's family, 2, for the honor of Charlie, and 3, for the fact that we are a nation who understands guns very well. Now, like I've said before, I'm going to do an entire breakdown of everything involved with it. But we've all been looking for the answers as far as, was this an exit wound? If it was, where is the entry? Who actually shot him? Was the guy on the roof actually the guy? If he was, why was he running off the roof with no apparent gun in his hand? Oh, he took it apart. Because that makes sense when you're trying to get away from a murder scene. You're going to sit there on the roof and take your gun apart just so you can put it in your backpack. And then you're going to reassemble it and dump it in the woods just so whenever they find it, it looks picture perfect for them.
What had been presented as proof of guilt was now being reinterpreted as evidence of doubt. And that doubt didn't just linger, it grew. Because when people slowed the footage, matched faces, and compared testimonies, one question became louder than all the rest. If that wasn't Tyler Robinson in the video, then who was it? And then came the turning point. The moment that cracked the facade wide open. A leaked investigative document surfaced online, passed from one anonymous account to another until it detonated across the internet. Buried within its pages was a revelation no one in the public had been told. Early in the investigation, before the cameras, before the press releases, authorities had actually identified another suspect. Not a vague lead or a rumor, an individual with direct ties to the victim. A stronger motive than anything ever attributed to Tyler Robinson, and a troubling history that made him far more plausible as a shooter. But that lead, it vanished. The name was never mentioned in any official updates. The suspect was never paraded before cameras. There was no press conference, no indictment, no explanation. It was as if the trail had been scrubbed from existence, replaced with the neat and tidy narrative centered on Robinson. When the document leaked, social media erupted. Hashtags like #FreeTyler and #WrongManShot to the top of Twitter's trending list, spreading like wildfire. Thousands of posts appeared within hours, many of them demanding to know why this information had been buried. Others called for new hearings, for independent oversight, for the case to be reopened entirely. YouTube streams and podcasts went into overdrive. Hosts dissected the leaked report line by line, highlighting passages that directly contradicted what prosecutors had told the press. Screenshots of the document were annotated, circled, and shared, each new detail sparking fresh outrage. TikTok and Reddit became hubs of digital investigation. Users posting timelines, comparing testimonies, overlaying maps, and pointing out inconsistencies the mainstream media had ignored. For many, the leaked document didn't just raise questions. It confirmed long-suspected fears that Tyler Robinson wasn't the shooter at all, but the scapegoat, an easy arrest to cover up a much messier truth. The narrative that had been sold to the public as certainty was suddenly exposed as something else entirely. A story stitched together to keep the real danger hidden, while an innocent man's life was sacrificed to maintain the illusion of justice. Legal experts are now stepping into the conversation, warning that this case may not just be controversial, it could be legally unstable. Several high-profile attorneys have gone on record stating that the mounting inconsistencies, withheld evidence, and newly surfaced leads could form the basis of powerful appeal. Some even suggest that what's already been revealed might be enough to trigger a full retrial, or at the very least, a review of how the case was handled from the start. Across the country, communities are demanding answers, petitions are circulating, and rallies are being planned to pressure officials into confronting the contradictions that have been swept under the rug. And yet, the most haunting question still hangs in the air, unshakable. If Tyler Robinson didn't pull the trigger, who did? Someone fired that shot. Someone escaped the layers of security. Someone slipped through the cracks while an innocent man was locked away. That person, whoever they are, is still out there, living free, uncharged, and possibly planning what comes next. The longer this question remains unanswered, the more it transforms from a criminal mystery into a national crisis of trust. Because this isn't just about Tyler anymore. It's about justice for the victim whose life was taken. It's about accountability for a system that rushed to deliver a packaged conclusion instead of the full truth. And it's about the public's right to know whether those in power have been telling them a story or hiding a scandal. So what do you think? Was Tyler Robinson wrongly accused, the victim of a narrative designed to soothe the public? Or is there still more to this story waiting to come out? More names, more leads, more evidence the world hasn't yet seen? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me where you're watching from. Subscribe for ongoing updates as this case unfolds. And spread this video so the truth isn't buried under headlines. Because in the end, justice only lives where the truth is exposed. And right now, the truth is clawing its way to the surface.